There comes a time when we have to stop negotiating with ourselves. We have to start embracing those irreversible shifts that lead to the most unapologetic, raw expressions of ourselves. This is Sexy Rebel Spirit, the private podcast by House of Andrea that drops live every single day into our exclusive Telegram space. If you're not in that space and you want to join the conversation, you'll find the link to it in the show notes. It's sexuality, it's rebellion, it's spirituality, and how these three things are simply the expression of who you are. This is your calibration portal, and this is where it all gets to change. So let's dive in. Hi, gorgeous. There is something interesting that happens when you start to fully tap into your intuition and you start to trust it on that day to day basis. Quite often we think of spirituality as something that has to be formal, that has to be contained within some sort of theology, religion, practice, or devotion, something that is a daily devotion. But spirituality to me, and spirituality in this space, is as simple as connecting in with something that is greater than yourself, an energy, a sense, the ether, the universe, a field, God, whatever that framing is for you. In this space, we're talking about that subtle nudge of just trusting, surrendering, and following those little hits that you get that remind you that you are connected to something way bigger than yourself, way bigger than the physical reality that constantly presents itself day in, day out to you, that trips us up, that makes us feel mundane, makes us feel ordinary. This is about really tapping in and trusting that intuition and knowing that even if you make a decision that feels like the wrong decision, or even if you're in a place where you have no idea what you're doing and you have no idea why you're there, there is that little voice within yourself that will constantly bring you back to the thing that you're meant to be doing, to the place that you're meant to be in, to the growth that you're meant to be traveling through. It will never lead you astray in terms of being and living and experiencing exactly what it is that you're meant to experience. And sometimes those intuitive hits are really strong, really forward, and they feel really intense in your body. And you're like, yes, this is my intuition, this is my gut feeling, this is my knowing, this is God, this is the universe speaking to me in this way. And sometimes they're so subtle that we feel like we're not getting anything at all. Sometimes those intuitive hits are so quiet that we feel disconnected from them. We suddenly think that we are loose and in the wash of life, and we've lost our connection and we don't know what we're doing and we can't make a decision, and everything feels really, really intense, or everything just feels blank and we can't make sense of it. But I want you to know that no matter how it feels, your intuition is always fully connected. Your ability to tap into that spiritual, that aware, that awakened part of you does not change and does not get affected by the circumstances of which you're in. I want you to really feel these words land in you and know that there is always a part of you that's connected. There's always a part of you that knows how to just let everything else fall away and just follow that nudge. And sometimes that can feel impossible. Like there are even, no matter how connected I am, no matter how powerful my psychic gifts are, my clairvoyant gifts, all of my connection into source, I too still have those moments where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think. Everything is overwhelming. But even with those emotions on board, I know that I know. And I know because I am human, because I have energy and fire and source and passion that runs through my body, in my veins, through my bones, through the energy that makes up me. That is always there. That is infinite and continuous, no matter whether I'm in this body or whether I've transcended, whether I am in the chaos of being a human or whether I'm meditating. That fire, that fuel, that connection, it does not waver. And so even in those moments where you're like, I can't tap into this. Know that you can. You know that you can. You know deep down that you can. And this is sometimes a sentence that can feel strange to hear when someone says to you, no, you already know. You know who you are. You know that you're connected. And on the surface, on the lip service, that can be really frustrating to hear because you're like, right now I'm not. And you can raise that anger within you and be like, I'm not. Like, stop telling me that I know because I don't. But that is the mind. That is the mind creating a story and a narrative and a block to separate you from that knowing, simply because sometimes it feels safer to distance yourself from being intuitive, which I find so crazy, because that intuitive knowing is the very essence of who we are. And so for the mind to interpret that as being unsafe and needing to know certainty and evidence and logic and fact to feel safe is just testament of the world that we've been conditioned into, how society has developed to fall to needing those certainties to get along, to make decisions, to move through the world. It's crazy how we have evolved as a society to put those things on a pedestal and make intuition, make sovereign connection, make God, the universe, source, guides and angels, all of those kinds of connections taboo. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how we've done that, but it is what has played out, and it is what often plays out in our conditioning, our internal beliefs, and our mechanisms that flips us into that disbelief, into that feeling of being lost and weakening that connection to ourselves. But this transmission is coming through so strongly today that your intuition will never waver. And it's been interesting because I've been reflecting on this with this big shift to ungate this membership, to turn it into a private podcast that is available for everyone to be able to come in. Anyone who wants to tap into that sexy rebel spirit, that sovereign energy, that remembrance of who we are, I've had to deeply lean on my intuition. And there's been moments where that intuition has sparked this feeling of fuel, of content, of knowing, of moves that I've made over the last couple of days to create the art that goes along with this podcast, to start crafting the introduction and the outro that is now on the audio only feed of this podcast, which I'll drop in the comments of this audio file below if you haven't got the audio feed. If you're listening on the podcast, you're already on the audio feed. But if you're in the Telegram group listening to this, I'll drop it in the comments so that you can have it, access to these audios in your favorite podcast player as well. But those audios, because they're not within this container and they're sitting on an external platform, like, I really wanted to craft an introduction and an outro for each of those audio files, just to anchor whoever's listening into this space, back into the power and the frequency that is here in this Telegram group. And I had those moments where I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what to record. Like, I don't know if this is right. You know, that mind chatter wanted to come in. But as soon as I let that go, not let that go, but like pushed it to the side and said, no, thank you. This is not a mind task. This is an intuitive task. This is a wanting the words to come through source, through the universe, through me, through my voice onto this podcast feed. So I'm only going to listen to that. I'm only going to tune into that current, that frequency, and allow that in. Even in those moments where that mind chatter wanted to come in, that sacred channel, that sacred connection that you have to that broader field, it is there if you command it, if you listen to it, if you ask for it. And I've done episodes in the previous format of this podcast about commanding source or commanding God or commanding the universe. And some people have a lot of resistance to this word or this energy and this intention of commanding. But when we talk about it in the context of coming back to your intuition and tapping into the trust that exists within you, it's not about commanding in terms of bossing or being harshly overbearing in terms of demands. But commanding in this space is getting really certain of your remembrance of who you are as a sovereign, connected, spiritual being, as someone who is always plugged into the field and can tap into that remembrance at any time. And so getting really commanding around this energy and working with your field, with your energy, your soul, your connection, and just saying, no, I am connected. And I know because I know. This kind of certain language helps you over and over and over remember and reinforce that connection that you have with this spiritual part of you. And I believe we're all spiritual in our own way. And it doesn't matter how you label it. It doesn't matter what flavor it is. It doesn't matter if it's God within the constructs of a religion. It doesn't matter if it's God from an agnostic perspective, or if it's universe, or if you're more in the spiritual realms of guides and angels and archangels and spirit animals, or if you just love to commune with Mother Earth and the frequency that she emits. It does not matter. What matters is that you awaken that part of yourself that is connected, and that is connected across time, across location, across physical body, physical material objects around you. You do not need to have an altar or devotional practices. Those things are beautiful to help you remember that. But what I'm talking about is just connecting into that remembrance of the frequency, of the energy, and that knowing, because you do know at the very core. And the task can be just stripping back the fear, the conditioning, the beliefs that you have that you don't know, that you have to question, that you have to look to others for answers, for evidence, for certainty. This practice and this frequency that we're shifting into here is just being able to almost cavalierly say, I know because I know. I'm connected. I'm spiritual. I'm a sexy rebel spirit. Like, just in that simple way of just being able to say it, being able to own it, and moving on, like moving through. Like, next, let's talk about the next thing, because that thing's already embedded. That thing's already deep, so deep within me that it's such a part of my identity that I don't even need to claim it externally anymore, because I trust it so much. It is just there. And so if you're having a day where you are feeling any of this resistance, fear, disconnection, questioning, you're stuck, or you're getting thrown back into some of those old habits where you want evidence or fact or truth, quote unquote truth in the human context of truth, before you believe anything or before you trust that you are connected, the work is to reverse that. The work is to walk away from that, draw that line in the sand and say, I don't need to do that, because I already know, because I know I'm connected, because I'm connected, because I'm a source, because I'm a human. And by nature, that is what we are. So follow those intuitive nudges. If you are lost, know that it's there. Just strip everything else away. And sometimes it can be easier said than done, but the more that you do this, the more that voice, the more that intuitive hit gets louder and louder and louder. And before you know it, you'll be following it so inevitably, so strongly, so confidently, because it's just part of who you are. And it will change everything for you. So just keep coming back to, you already know who you are. You know how to follow this. This is just a remembrance. This is just a reawakening. Because what comes next off the back of this remembrance changes everything. And I cannot wait to see how that starts to unfold. I love you. I'm sending you all of the intuitive remembrance vibes that I can, and I will see you in the next transmission. If you're not in there yet and you want to get into the private Telegram space where all of these audios drop every day, as well as all the art, the conversation, and the behind the scenes, go to www.andrealeemathies.com/private podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram at Andrea Lee Matthies, and you can find more about me and all of my work at andrealeemathies.com. I'll see you in the next transmission.